G'day guys and welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be talking about sand driving, in particular sand driving in the Landcruiser 200 series. Now if you're new to owning one of these vehicles and you've taken it out on the sand, you may have been a little bit disappointed with all the electronic traction control systems and functions that get in the way. So today we're going to be talking about how to successfully navigate all those systems in the 200 series Landcruiser to make sure you float over the sand and don't get bogged next time you hit the beach. So let's jump on in and let's go through it all. So in today's video, we are going to be focusing on the electronic systems and the traction control settings within the 200 series Landcruiser. However, it goes without saying the most important, probably the most influential factor on your vehicle when driving on sand is tyre pressure. So here on the Cruiser today, I'm running about 16 to 17 PSI all round. This is just going to help give this tyre a bigger footprint and therefore float over the sand rather than just spinning through the top layer and getting bogged down. So let's jump on inside and we'll show you how to activate those systems. So some of you might be thinking I'm contradicting myself by saying the traction control system is no good on sand after releasing a video on crawl control and how that got me out of a bog really well on the beach. But the difference between that scenario and what we're going to be doing today is I was already stuck and I was already sunk down to the axles on that particular example, and therefore the crawl control really got into its own and helped us get out of that bog really well. Now I've previously done a video on the multi-terrain select and the traction control system within the 200 series Landcruiser, and if you want to, you can check that out up here. I'll put a link in the description below. However, we know from the previous video that the different terrain selects that this particular cruiser has will affect the level of traction control and affect at its frequency and its intervention within the driving style of the cruiser. Now on its sand mode, which is its least interruptive mode, you'll still get a little bit of traction control system, but it requires a fair bit of wheel spin for it to engage. Now this is going to make sand driving a little bit easier, and the reason that is the case is because as we're driving along sand, the traction and the frequency of which the sand is changing is constant. So you may go through patches of soft sand, patches of hard sand, in between, and that's going to vary all the time as you're driving along. Now if you go through a soft patch and it only affects one side of the car, then the car is going to spin a little bit faster on that side, as the power being distributed to the axles is going to be directed to the wheel with the least resistance. When that happens, the traction control system will engage. It'll attempt to lightly brake the spinning wheel and therefore send power back through to the other wheel, trying to or attempting to maximize traction to all four wheels equally. What happens here is that you'll see that there's a bit of a disruption in the momentum, which is a key when sand driving. If you get a bit of a braking force, it's going to slow the vehicle down, and it potentially can start a chain reaction where it forces too much power across the axle to the other side, therefore acting ABS or traction control system on the other side as well. If this chain reaction starts and you start to lose momentum, particularly in very boggy sand, there's a good chance the vehicle will just slow and come to a stop, and therefore result in you getting bogged and making it very difficult to start up again. So just quick note as well, on the VX and Sahara models of the Landcruiser 200 series, you do get your multi-terrain select system, which will give you an option of that traction control system. However, on the GX and the GXL models, you won't get that selection, but you still have a standard traction control system, which will play a similar role. This being said, regardless of what model cruiser you do have, we can definitely learn how to navigate these electronic systems well to make sure we drive effortlessly over sand in all scenarios. So let's have a look at what settings we need to use. Okay, so we're in the vehicle, so let's get it started up. And obviously when starting up, you're just going to be driving in standard mode, so you're not going to have your center diff lock engaged, any of the traction control settings up, and you're assuming that you're going to be in high range. So today we're driving on some dunes, so what we're going to need to do is get ready for sand driving at lower speeds. So the first thing you always do, regardless of whether you're driving in high range or low range, is activate the center diff lock. So there's a button down here by the driver's right knee. Press that one time, you'll see it flash up on your dash, and then it'll engage. Now for us, like I said, we're going to be doing low speed stuff today, so we're going to be sticking it into low range. So to do that, gear stick into neutral, and then turn the little knob to L4, and that will, on the Sahara model, will bring up our multi-terrain select system. Now, if you have a VX or a Sahara model, you can choose the level of traction control interference by using the rotary knob in the center dash here, and that will switch between your different options. But like I said, today we're doing sand, so we'll stick to the mud and sand option, which will limit the traction control setting. Now in addition to this, the most important part about this is you've got two different types of traction control systems that Toyota incorporate into their vehicles. One is called ATRAC or ATRAC, and this is your standard traction control system, which is what the multi-terrain select will run off. And the other one is called VSC, or Vehicle Stability Control. Now, they both have slightly different functions, however they use the same theory of activating the wheel's individual brakes to keep the vehicle steady, straight and maximum traction. Now, on sand, generally you can use the multi-terrain select system. However, on particularly boggy sand, or if you are doing some slightly higher speed, you want to disable both the VSC and the ATRAC as well. So starting off in low range, you've already disabled the Vehicle Stability Control, or VSC. Now, in order to disable the traction control system, you need to make sure you're stationary and in neutral or park, and you're going to be pressing that traction control button for a period of 3 seconds. What this will do is it will disable the multi-terrain select, so if you are in a VX or Sahara model, your center screen will just simply say TRC off, and therefore now your power is going to be split 50-50 to rear axles, and you're going to have full power going to all wheels regardless of the wheel spin of each particular wheel. Now, if we're in high range, we'll turn it back to high range now. It's going to be slightly different. When you're in high range, you've activated center diff lock. Your center diff lock light will be the only light illuminated. If you press the traction control system one time, it will say TRC off. And then this is your traction control system that will disable those wheels from being braked when they're spinning individually. However, what this does not disable is the vehicle stability control. So again, pressing and holding for 3 seconds will turn off both your active track and your VSC, and therefore you are going to have full 50% power going to each axle regardless of wheel spin, body motion, and or whether or not the vehicle is sliding on the track. Now, it goes to note as well, if you are going to restart your vehicle for whatever reason, these settings will return it back to factory again. So if you have turned your traction control system and your VSC off at any point, you turn your car off and come back to it, they are going to be back on again. Now guys, I think it goes without saying, the vehicle is going to handle it very differently, particularly if you haven't experienced it without these electronic systems on. So make sure you do take care when you're driving. But for now, we're going to go hit some tracks, and I'm going to try and demonstrate the different levels of interference the traction control system can have on sand and the effect it might have. So we're going to go find a small hill somewhere. We're going to try and drive up it in several different scenarios, and we'll show you exactly the effect the traction control system has in that soft sand. So in order to demonstrate and show you how these traction control systems make a difference, we're going to use the hill behind me over my right shoulder here. Now, it's only a very small hill, however the bottom of it does have a bit of a scoop, and therefore you can't use high speed and momentum to start the hill off. Otherwise, you're just going to end up bottoming out and damaging the front of your vehicle. It requires a relatively slow approach, followed by a fair bit of power at the bottom in order to try and make it over the top and avoid getting bogged in that wind-blown soft sand at the top. So in this circumstance, we're going to start on using the rock mode. Now, you would never ordinarily do this, but I'm just going to do that to show you guys the difference that it makes for the traction control system and how quickly we lose forward motion and lose that momentum while going up the hill. We're then going to switch the multi-terrain select system into the mud and sand setting, and we'll see how far up we get, and then we'll use no traction control at all. Now, we should be able to see the wheels spinning and acting differently in those 3 different settings, and we'll see how we go and which one gets to the top. So let's set these cameras up and give it a go. Okay, so we're ready for the first hill climb. Now, what we're going to do on this one is use our rock mode traction control setting on our multi-terrain select. Also going to use second start. This hill does require a little bit of momentum. We don't need to use first gear low range. So by pressing second start, you'll get another light that illuminates on the dash. I'm just going to start the gearbox off in second gear and maybe switch to third while we go up the hill. So in rock mode, we'll see how we go. From inside the vehicle, we can hear the traction control system engage and hinder momentum from the very start. This caused resistance against the spinning wheels, and we didn't get very far at all. One thing when it comes to sand driving is you don't want to continually spin your wheels. Once you lose momentum, particularly on an uphill, just stop, reverse back down and give it another go. So let's try that same test again, but this time I'm going to switch over to mud and sand on the multi-terrain select. Again, we can hear the traction control system engage, and we observe the wheels turning at different speeds. This caused a loss of momentum, and as a result, we lost that forward motion. Now, I know that it may not look like I'm accelerating at 100% capacity, but I am. You need to remember that the vehicle's electronics are designed to work together to both travel as far as possible, but also protect vehicle components. As the traction control system engages, the ECU will not provide 100% of power to the drivetrain. If it does, it's essentially asking the engine to push and fight against the braking forces from the traction control. This will have numerous consequences, including overheating brakes, accelerating wear and tear, and putting enormous strain on the driveline components such as your CV joints. So this time, we're going to press and hold that traction control button for 3 seconds. Now disable all of our traction control systems and our VSCs. Second start, into drive, and off we go again. There we go. And that was a lot easier than it was the first time. You see there, just by using that extra momentum, we managed to pull straight up over those hills, even though we had wheels spinning. No intervention from that traction control system, all straight up and over. Now, although it may look like I was travelling faster on that last run, if we play these clips side by side, we can see just how much momentum is lost with the traction control system. On the left here, we can see the first run using the ROC traction control function, and on the right, the successful run disabling all traction control functionality. We can see the point of acceleration is almost identical. However, disabling the electronic functions enables the engine to produce and transfer all of its power to the wheels regardless of their individual wheel speed. So that short example there showed how those traction control systems engage, whereabouts and when they engage, and how they have an effect on the vehicle at different points. And we can see there by turning off all systems it did really well and seemed to climb up that hill of ease when you compare that with the ROC mode and maximum traction control engagement. Now, the other situation you might need to consider deactivating all the traction control systems as well is on higher speed beach driving or flat sand driving. It's not always going to be hill climbs. So when you're driving along a beach or a flat surface, you might find the vehicle starts to move motion-wise sideways, particularly when you are following other people's tracks. When that happens, the VSC, or the Vehicle Stability Control System, will engage the traction control to brake the wheels, and therefore again having that loss of momentum. There we have it, guys. I think that demonstration there shows clearly how the traction control system in this Landcruiser 200 series influences the behaviour and the forward motion of the vehicle in soft sand. And with the ability to remove the traction control system and the vehicle stability control, gives you full power from the V8 twin turbo straight down to the wheels, and keeping that momentum up regardless of wheel traction. Now, just keep in mind, Toyota developed these systems for a reason. They are there for safety and to try and maximize the handling and characteristics of the vehicle. So if you are going to remove them, just make sure to drive carefully, get used to the vehicle, and just experiment with what works and what doesn't. So if you're interested in these types of videos, make sure to check out my crawl control self-recovery video, where I get this Landcruiser out of a bog just using the crawl control traction control system. These systems can be very handy and work very well when used at the right time in the right environment. So guys, keep in mind, this is all about right time and place. Some beaches and certain sand conditions, you won't need to deactivate all the systems. However, at least now you know how to. If you really do get stuck, give it a go and see how it works for your cruiser. So if you've enjoyed the video and got some information from it, make sure to like it and subscribe to the channel for more. Thanks for watching again, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers, guys.